Kia ora, Rosann. So good to have you here today.
Exciting.
Join us on our Dunedin Stories podcast.
Yes.
Now, Rosann, you are already a fairly well-known person here in Ōtepoti Dunedin, but it would be great to hear for the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do, perhaps. Let's start with that, shall we?
Sure. I'm really, really lucky to be in my dream job. So I'm absolutely stoked. So for me, my husband Vincent, George, and I have Vincent George Travel. And we are a little bit out the box from your average travel agency because we've got a few strings to our bow. First of all is for the people. And I think when we went through the whole COVID situation, that really came out really triumphantly about how much we care about people.
Well, it had to be a pretty bad industry to have been in when COVID.
It was a tough one. It was a tough one because you didn't know where it was going to head.
No.
You didn't know what was going to happen, and it was a very insecure time. But what we did know, which is the core mana of our basis of our business, is that we just needed to give people what they needed to know and hear at the time. What did people need? They needed knowledge. They needed some trusted information. And when we created Vincent George Travel 12 years ago now, we decided that the industry needed people who really listened to what people wanted to do. You know, travel can be a very complicated thing for people. It can be a very anxious thing for people. It can be a necessity, not only just for leisure, but, you know, people needing to see families and to connect. And that's what we found during the COVID period, was the disconnection of people was massive. So trying to get people together where we could, trying to give them the information that they needed to know what they could do. Where were we going with this in the future? Will you ever see your families again? All of that kind of thing. It was really, really huge, and it really brought home to us how people really needed to be reassured that there is a possibility to still connect around the world, even just to come home.
Well, you were, of course, recognised for that effort, weren't you, a few times, because you really were an international advocate for your clients and for everybody that needed the information that you're talking about.
Well, again, with the heart, it really had to come from here. You would see so many stories on social media about people being let down, people being scammed, people being stuck, people being extremely, anxious about, can I get back to my home country? Will I ever see my grandchild? Things like that. So there was a couple of situations. They kind of snowballed. And I think if you do things with the right intention, everything follows. So there was a beautiful gentleman, Robbie, who was desperate to see his dying son in Perth. At that stage, there was no trans-Tasman travel whatsoever. The rules had changed around transiting countries. You had to have a longer period on your passport. There was a multitude of hoops to jump through. There was so much paperwork. And remember, we're new to this too, because for us, the industry had been absolutely saturated with online options and all sorts of different, ways to get places and ways to book. And there were so many different airlines in the air, and it was all very price competitive. Now we were down to just a little bit of an idea and a whole lot of hope and an opportunity maybe that might come about. But anything like a lockdown, for example, could change all of that within a second. And for this gentleman, that's pretty much how it went. I saw his story on social media where he had tried to get to his son. His son had been diagnosed terminally ill. He had attempted to book with what he thought was a private charter and was nearly out of pocket well over $30,000. Now, when I read that on social media, I thought, how can anyone do that to somebody, especially while we're going through what we're going through at the moment, So I reached out to him, and rightly so. He was a little bit sort of unsure, because here I am just out of the blue. He doesn't know me from a bar of soap. I'm right down the other end of our entire beautiful country. And I said to him, I can't promise you, but I can promise you I will try hard to get you to where you need to be. We had a window of about 9 days, I think, from the moment we talked about connecting to actually getting him there. And at that point, there were no flights across to Australia whatsoever. But I was alerted to one opportunity. I thought I might be able to get him through Singapore. Bit of a long way to go around to Perth. And also, we had to think about getting them into managed isolation, which also was something that we think about, what on earth is this managed isolation situation? Now, this is right on the onset of the world going crazy. By the time we were actually able to put things together and secure an option that we felt would work, and he sent his passport through, all the rules have changed about transiting through Singapore. You need to have 6 months on your passport. This gentleman had 4. It was just, we seemed to come over one thing after another wall, another, pitfall that we would fall into. And it was like, this is not going to happen. We're going to get him there. Now we're emotionally invested. We're not just invested in, okay, we can do this, but we're now emotionally invested. He got a new passport in record time because immigration was pretty quiet, to be fair. So nobody was getting anything anywhere there. And now we have paperwork reflecting another passport, his new passport, a whole lot of hope in the will to get there, a ticket that we possibly may not be able to use now because we haven't met the criteria. So that took a call to Singapore Airlines, who I was so emotional at the time. I even get emotional thinking about it now. I was so emotional at the time for him. And we were outside, I think, 72 hours to depart, when we found out these new rules. And I spoke to Singapore Airlines, and it must have been a really heartfelt conversation because they played it to the hierarchy of Singapore Airlines and said, we need to do something. And when they called back and said, on this occasion, we will allow him to travel on 2 passports with corresponding paperwork to one of them, the other passport to get him into Australia, let him stay there, go through the managed isolation, which we had already arranged in Perth, through the Australian Home Affairs, another lengthy conversation for them. Can we get him into managed isolation? Can we have him stay? Because it was all very, the army were involved, it was all extremely huge. This is an area of Australia that considers them to be the backbone of Australian economy with their mining. So they were the toughest lockdown of all. So we get through these hoops. I call them at 5 to midnight and say, we'll all go, you're going. We're having tears. The next morning we wake up to an Auckland lockdown. And he was in Pukekohe. And the border for that lockdown was literally metres away from his house. And it must have looked like they were running from a volcanic evacuation or something, because I just said to him, get on the other side of that barrier, just get on the other side of that barrier and get to the airport. I don't care if you've got to sleep in the car park, which is exactly what they did. And then they got on that plane. And it was right to the wire. And the photo of him sitting in that aircraft, I've never felt such a wave of relief.
There's a movie script in this, Rosann.
I feel like there could be.
Think there is.
I mean, if Tom Hanks can do a whole movie just in an airport in the departures lounge, I'm sure we could put something together,
Look, the empathy obviously is a huge part of you, and that's clearly you're just such an empathetic person. The kindness and the caring that you give to people that you don't know,
I just can't stand to see, and I think that's why I got into this industry, interestingly enough, was I started my career in tourism through answering an advert in the paper in 1998, having never travelled anywhere in my life, been on an aircraft once, thought it was the best thing ever, and here was this little course for a few weeks to become into tourism, and it gave you 3 days in Australia. And I thought, wow, that 3 days in Australia, wow, that'd be amazing. was a wee place called Carrelling College at the time. They took an intake of less than 20 people. They had well over hundreds of applicants. And it was interesting to see they took a very wide range. You know, I was kind of in the middle demographic, I think, you know, to be taken in there. And from there, you got a taster of everything. You could be in car rental, could be hotel reception, could be, you know, airline stewardesses and things like that. And so I chose a hotel industry at that point because I felt it was dynamic, it was ever evolving and changing, but my key love has always been people.
I was going to say, because you're a people person.
Yeah. And I thought there'd be so many different nationalities coming in. I did not know anything about outbound travel at all. It was Skyline Leisure Lodge. It was inbound. I knew nothing about outside travel, but I was really captivated by people's stories coming into Dunedin, and with a love of Dunedin, having grown up here since I was 6.5. It was very much Cantabrian was where I was born. So to me, this was my base. This was my home. This is what I loved. And I loved to show it off. So people come into the hotel, and of course you want to show them all about our beautiful tourism sites and our buildings, our historic society and the people and the friendly nature. And from there, I was really lucky to be able to work with, back then was the Super 12 and the All Blacks back then, and the English cricket teams and all of these ones that came in. And to me, it was very much not a starstruck moment, but it elevated my sense of, I think, in awe of what people could do with their lives, you know? Like these amazing sports people and just
The potential
and the organic growth of human beings, you know. It was just like amazing. Because little old me, I'd never gone anywhere. Like I didn't know anything, you know. This was like my little wee pod here, my little wee safe space.
Well, what's fascinating is you're an incredible talker, obviously, but I also know that you are an incredible listener and a very kind and caring soul that wants to help people. So those two things together are pretty rare.
Thank you.
So I think that that's recognised here in Dunedin, obviously, and in the tourism industry and internationally, as I said. You're a rock star.
Oh. Well, people are fascinating.
Yeah.
You don't have to the same.
No.
And I think we need to embrace that, you know. And if I can help people explore something new, weave their dreams and make it reality, connect them across the globe for opportunities, for families, for work opportunities, just to make people's bucket lists appear so much within their reach. Why not?
I had a wee thought about when I was knowing I was going to interview you, Rosann, knowing that the role that you play is one that majority actually sends people away from our beautiful city. So, and I was thinking, oh, hang on a minute, we're going to be sitting here talking about how amazing Dunedin is and why people should come to Dunedin. Does that feel a bit funny sometimes when you're playing that role of sending people away?
You know, it's funny because when I do send people away, it's for a moment in their lifetime to create a memory. But one of the best things about is coming home, you know. I think also too, it's so important that people understand how good we have it here.
100%.
You know, like, of course, we have our own challenges in Aotearoa, in Dunedin, in our own selves. But if we can step out of our comfort zone and we can explore what other nationalities go through, what other countries go through, other policies that are put into other countries, how they operate, how desperately in need some of these places are. We are pretty good here.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky.
We are so lucky. And I think it's helped me grow as a person, not to get on that whining bandwagon of, you know, the political sense or our council or our environment or what's going on. You know, and I go, hey, you know what? Have you ever been in an African tribe where they are having to go through a massive drought, make it part of their life and survive, or the malnutrition, or the scariness of some of these poverty places and things like that, or I've been in war zones. I've been in escape bombings. I've been in very impoverished places. We've been in situations where we've raised money for orphanages around the world, or acid burn victims in India, and helped them create a safe space for them in a cafe scene that they could tell their stories. And, there's so much more to our world and ourselves if we just put ourselves out there. The world's actually a very small place. It's only our mind's limitations.
So with all of that, no wonder coming back to Dunedin isn't the most special moment for you.
One of the most important things I think I realised, the very first place I ever went to for a long period of time, bearing in mind I'd only been in Australia for 3 days at the time, was I grabbed my then 13-year-old son and took off to South Africa. Wow. Because I'd worked with people in the Super 12 and they had said how amazing it all was. And this was still on the verge of apartheid, so this was in 2003. And we went there, no fixed boat. Wouldn't recommend it now. Now I have a bit of travel agent. But flew into Cape Town, knew nobody, had nowhere to go. And we spent 3 months touring around one of the most amazing countries I've ever laid eyes on. It gets right under your skin. And I mean, we sat with street kids and we learnt about how they operate, and we sat in villages where one of their villages had been, the village men was in the lowest rung of society because he chose not to get circumcised at age 13 with a rock. These kind of incredible experiences, gunpoint, held at gunpoint over a car park, all these kind of things. And coming into Dunedin, the first thing I realised was we're not behind huge fences and lockdown gates and armed guards and all of these things that these people take for granted, that they've been raised with. This is how life is.
Yeah.
Life is so very cheap. And you come home and you've got property and you've got lawns and you've got your domestic animals that run free and safety, and you could say goodbye to your child going to school and know they're coming home that day. Those little things we take for granted.
Yeah.
Travel expands the mind's eye so greatly that whether you're just taking the family to the Gold Coast, or whether you're heading to the Northern Lights, or whether you're actually, being placed into some kind of combat zone, it's all very relevant to who you are, where you come from, and to be grateful for what we've got.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I find that when we've travelled with our kids, it's the most valuable education that we've been able to provide them. Yeah.
So much so.
Not just memories and stories, but learning about other cultures and the way that people live. Yeah.
The language, the currency, the environment, what they enjoy, how they deal with their daily life, It's fascinating.
You work with your husband. We talked about that before we turned the cameras on, but I thought it was important to acknowledge Vince as well. And
so it wasn't for Vince, we wouldn't have had this crazy idea of going out on our own.
It probably wouldn't be called Vincent George Travel either, would it? So
that is true.
Yeah, fundamentally.
Yes.
But, owning a business, running a business as a husband and wife team, it's not easy. So we acknowledge Vince. But is there anything else about Dunedin that you think is unique to being able to build a business like you have? Is there?
We have a unique business, I think, too, because when we started, Vince had come from a larger travel corporation model, and it was a franchise. So when he decided that the things were changing and we needed to look at things differently, back then you were always reliant on a bricks and mortar type scenario. It's only been post-COVID that people have really jumped on this whole working from home gig, so to speak, So when we opened up what's called a brokership, what that meant was that we didn't have to be beholden to a particular vein of suppliers, a particular model in how you run your business. And it gave us freedom to be able to explore and do what we wanted to do. So for us, another side to our business is escorting tours, taking groups of people away who feel more confident being with someone who can travel with them, experience with them, and give them that confidence to grow, right, in their travel experience.
Kind of the grown-up version of a Kentucky.
The grown-up version of a Kentucky, which was a Kiwi entity way back in the day too. So for Dunedin, the support that we had to be able to bring a whole new model to the fold was really different. People go to a travel agency and they go, well, where do I go? Well, at that stage, we were working from home and we would meet in a cafe or we would go out to people, or we could get a group of people and we would go to their home in the evening.
Have a seminar and
present to them, and they're like, my gosh, we're getting the world to our doorstep. This is really different. Then we decided that we did need a bit of a space for people to also want to come in. People like to pick up a brochure and flick through things and be part of that whole planning process in a different way. For Dunedin, for us, the loyalty of Dunedin people was, it actually blew us away because, we were trying something new. We were putting out there that, travel didn't just have to be in the confines of a room with a whole bunch of brochures and things. Let's do something different. So I had a background in media, and through that, the power of radio and things, we pulled on that and we created the radio travel show, okay? And the listenership was huge on that. Just letting people know, pitfalls of travel or how you can do things better, or giving them deals and things like that. And we grew into getting people to come along with us for group travel as well. So that's a big trust. I'm basically saying, I will take you to the other side of the world, trust me, and I'll look after everything, and you'll be in a safe, professional space and still get to live your dreams, And from there, we branched into women-only tours, because then we realised that there are a lot of women out there who would desperately love to humanise themselves outside of being a mum and a wife and a teacher or a provider or anything like that, and have that moment that they never thought they could do. So I think the loyalty from Dunedin, getting to know us, that we can provide safe, comfortable experiences.
Exciting still.
And exciting, yeah, exactly. And basically be responsible for making people's dreams come true.
No, I love it.
So it was, and that grew organically into its own set of amazing experiences. And now we're actually quite global. We have people coming into our tours from overseas, big groups in Australia and New Zealand, getting together. And now, of course, funnily enough, post-COVID, and I go back to the COVID side because it kind of put us globally on the map when we chartered some flights also, when we had the bubble, that we could have the quarantine bubble between Australia and the South Island. And from that grew a whole new business of incoming business. So now I have quite a few incoming people from America, Netherlands, coming to explore and see New Zealand. Awesome. And that's even a nicer string to our bow, because then I get to really skite about how amazing our little piece of the world is here, and introducing New Zealand. I mean, like the cruise ship season and thing is just amazing too. We had a lot of cruise ship tours around the city.
Yeah.
And that got me really au fait with my own city. And you think about it, how many times have you actually experienced everything Dunedin's got to offer?
No, when you're from here, you just don't. It's only when you go elsewhere, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Look, there's so much to offer here.
Well, look, that's a beautiful segue, because we have a bunch of questions to ask you about Dunedin.
Yes.
Thank you for the segue. I think you might have worked in media.
Maybe a little bit.
So, look, it is a little bit lighthearted, but what is your go-to place for a lunch out in Dunedin? If you had somebody visiting that hadn't seen Dunedin before, where are you going to take them for a bite to eat?
Where am I going to take them? Well, see, the beautiful thing about Dunedin is I could take them out to St Clair, of course. But I would rather grab some amazing takeout from, say, the Esplanade and head down onto St Clair Beach or head up onto John Wilson Drive. You can't beat fish and chips on John Wilson Drive from someone who's come from somewhere else. Hello, we have the best in the world, right?
We do.
And I mean,
And the seagulls will come and visit you.
And the seagulls will come and visit, and you've probably got a 50-50 chance of a sea lion coming out. That's another real go-to place, is Aramoana. It's so special. If you head down onto the beach of Aramoana, not only have you got 2 beaches to choose from, but you've also got the wildlife. You can look over at the gun emplacements over in Tauranga Heads. If you're lucky enough to see in a mind's height over to the albatross colonies, etc., over there.
I laugh, Rosann, because nearly 3/4 of the people we've interviewed have all mentioned Aramoana so far. Yes. It's not that much of a secret, to be honest. Everybody does know about it, but we don't talk about it.
No, we don't. But did you know that you can be completely self-sufficient for a whole meal down there? You can flounder at night. You've got your scallops. You've got all your mussels. You can have the best seafood chowder on your back door of Aramoana.
I'm sure you could probably knock on one of the locals' houses and they'd offer you a cup of tea as well.
They've got a couple of nice places down there, I have to say. The pilot's house is especially special.
No, it is very special. Have you done the walk up to the top? I've been informed that that's the one to be done.
You know what? I'm guilty enough to say no.
No, yeah,
I haven't.
No, you and I together. It's all right.
But the other thing I love too is Ross Creek. I absolutely love the walks through there. And also, a wee go-to place that I go, which is a wee hidden gem, is I also go into 3 Mile Hill and I go into the forest there.
Nice, yes. I'm familiar.
So peaceful. It is really lovely. So anything that surrounds me in nature, I love it. The beach side of things is lovely, but I'm more of a forest girl.
Yeah.
So anything
spiders over the sandflies.
Yeah. Or fantails over the seagulls. That's what I'd take.
What about an event that's in your calendar every year, regardless, unless, of course, we're told that it's been cancelled, but what's something go-to that's Dunedin that you must go to every year?
So there's actually one that I'm missing out on, and I used to go every year, and that would be on the Waitangi weekend markets, the Paddy's markets, that we used to have here. So I've swapped that up now, and I love the Winter Carnival.
Because it's very special.
The Winter Carnival, you come out, and there's just so much impressive creations of people's. Gosh, we've got some talent.
We do.
Honestly, and anything also that's down at the Muso Club. The good old Muso Club.
Oh,
you can't beat the Muso Club.
Wow.
It's so iconic.
We haven't touched on that, but you would have been on the stage at the Muso Club more than once.
Oh, it's so funny actually. The last time I was there, I was watching a couple of our good friends play, Clive and a couple of others, and I had to look up on the wall, and there was an iconic photo of when my bad shotgun was up there, and there was 5 of us, and we were just magic at the time. It started off as a bit of a laugh, and then it turned into doing a lot of bike rallies, a lot of weddings, and from 21st to 60th and everything in between. And
I love it.
So funny, covers band at the time.
Yeah.
But they were good memories because the music scene in Dunedin is iconic, honestly. And we have got Netheril dancing toys, the chills. I mean, and we're going back, even in this day and age too, I don't think we've got enough music venues.
No, we don't.
To explore the good acoustics of Dunedin music.
I think there's a bit of work being done around that.
I believe so too. And that's something that I think is just fabulous. Anytime there's a concert in the Octagon, anytime that we can celebrate an equinox or, a winter fall, anything like that, that's where you'll find me.
In the Octagon.
Yeah.
Rosann, if you could share a space or an Ocho hot chocolate with a Dunedin legend, maybe they're not with us anymore, but maybe they are. Who would that be? Who would be your Dunedin legend? Yes. Have a chat.
Gosh, she's got it. Do you know, I was very, very privileged. It's a lovely wee story. And this is a wee lady that her whole being is very close to my heart for many reasons, but one of my very, very first jobs I ever had, which I consider in tourism, was at what was then called the Early Settlers Museum. And I was receptionist there, and they had this great big old-fashioned TV at the time, and you put on what was called VHS tapes. And you would have to put something on because people would come in and they would go into the gallery and things like that, and they'd have something in the background to do with Dunedin. And this particular video was Angel at my table. And I was perched on the side of this couch and I was enthralled with this movie. I think, gosh, this is amazing. And this woman with bright fiery hair came in through the doors. Now, honestly, to look at her, you probably wouldn't have even looked twice. Just an average looking older lady came in, a few bags. She had this crazy hair going on. And she sat at the upper end of the couch. We were both sitting on the couch, arms. And I noticed her because that was my job. I was at reception. And I asked her, and she was there to see a curator for something. And I said, have you ever watched this movie? She said, interesting, she says. It's the only internet. And lo and behold, I did not realise it was Janet Frame.
That's
it
real.
wasn't until we were well and truly through the movie and she had gone to see who she needed to see at the time that it all clicked and fell into place.
Wow.
I would have loved to have had an hour with that lady and really gotten to know. I mean, her story was on screen, but her story underneath it, what a powerful woman to go through everything that she went through in an age where we knew nothing about mental health.
Yeah.
We knew nothing about the value of people who appeared different in society. She would be a lady I would love to sit with and share a hot chocolate and go, wow, how is it that you fought through all of that? It's still just amazing.
I wonder what
Would be my
insights she would have on our current dilemma that we have with our own mental health challenges and the support services and the...
Exactly. A voice that was, you know, we try and profess that we've come so far.
Have we really?
I feel like we've just gone backwards, you know, because the same problems have stayed there. People are not listening. People are not learning. People are not funding, or people are not spending in the right areas, you know. And this has not changed for decades and decades.
Well, I think that might also be a segue into the question that I'd like to ask you, which, if you had the power to change something for good, for Dunedin, what would that be? And you might have a story aligned with that, maybe.
Yeah, Dunedin has so much to offer. Okay, so you're spoiled for choice if you want to grow here. You have that ability to do so. Dunedin, I love the fact that, you know, often it comes down to, hey, sometimes it's who you know, to get you anywhere. But I think the fundamental foundation of our mental health system affects everybody. And if I could change one thing, it would definitely be bringing the awareness to how the lack of support for those that are definitely in need needs to be recognised. We can't keep closing places down that protect people and give them the support that they need to get through the day. I mean, it's so important. Reflecting slightly back on the whole COVID thing again, you know, brought an awareness of anxiety. And I think people don't understand that feeling anxious is actually a mental health situation. And how fast things can snowball, not just in our youth, but as we get older as well. We have this level of expectation on our human beings.
The older you get, the easier life is.
That we need to perform and that you should really, you know, and There's something that I find very interesting where you hear a statement to not only a young person, but someone was like, sort yourself out, get it together. But what does that mean? What does it mean to somebody who is struggling to get out of bed in the morning and feel okay with themselves to be told, hey, get on top of it, sort it out? I don't think we've got enough education on how to actually prepare ourselves for a day. How do you do that? What does it mean, sort yourself out? I mean, do you look at yourself and go, well, am I lacking something that somebody else has? Or we're very easy to have these Facebook lives, these social media lives, these Instagram moments. I'm doing okay. Most of us are not doing okay.
Well, nobody is 100% great 100% of the time. And acknowledging that, and then acknowledging that that small moment in time for you might be the majority of time for some people.
Exactly. Check on your neighbour, check on your friend. That one cup of coffee to take them out of that space and that dark space they might be in elsewhere in a cafe, that could open up a whole new set of feel-good feelings. And, like I have a lot of friends and family that are, plagued with mental health issues, including myself. And I think it's important that people get to speak to somebody at least once a day. Talk to someone outside of your own little world. Interact. We don't interact anymore. We text, we Facebook, we message.
It's not a real connection, is it?
There's no connection. So I think if we could do one thing in our community, it's connect people back again. A 30-minute coffee could mean the difference between somebody feeling okay and somebody not feeling okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just think this whole interview just speaks to the empathy and the caring and the kindness that you have, Rosann. And I really thank you for your time and sharing your story, a little of your story. I know there's a whole lot more there. And we are considering doing some nighttime sessions and having a wine or two. So who knows what
that would be fun too.
Exactly. But look, is there something that you'd like to share last of all around maybe who you are, what you're doing, and how people can find you? Because there's always places to go and they need to be coming to see Rosann at Vincent George Travel.
So from a business point of view, we're located beautifully across from First Church. I mean, that in itself is so special. An iconic, beautiful building, and there we are right on the corner of Burlington and Lower Murray Place, which is lovely, across from the AA. So, and in a beautiful Art Deco building, I might add too. So our environment is super special. It's a lovely place to be talking about travel. It's a lovely place just to be stopping in. That's easy. Or our website, obviously, vincentgeorgetravel.co.nz. People can put a message out there that we can come back to. We seem to be always available somehow.
24 hours a day.
Because you kind of have to. It's the industry that, just because somebody has left the country, they haven't left our lives. We are on point until they're back home. So we are always available. But I think too, just to let people know that, you don't have to take that great big trip to Europe. It could be just that little. I had a call the other day about someone who wanted to reward someone they loved very much with a little bit of a surprise. They didn't want to go too far. We've got a gorgeous country. Check out Doubtful Sound. Hop up to Waiheke. Get into, Glenorchy. Hit the West Coast. We can do anything like that, I want to hear what people's dreams and aspirations are. I want to hear what's going to make a memory for them to talk about for years to come, or to show photos of to their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, and say, this was the glacier we once had on the West Coast, Our environment is forever changing, so let's be a part of that. Experience it. Try not to go home before you see your own country. Leave before you see your own country. I'm the worst. I'm saving my own country for my retirement, to be honest. So if anyone wants to come, away with me and experience something too, especially if you're a middle-aged woman who feels that you just need a little bit something more in your own life. Grab a bunch of ladies together. Let me put something amazing together. Let's go travel and make some memories. And then come back to Dunedin and be happy where we're at.
Sounds like so much fun to be done with you as well. Thanks again, Rosann. Dunedin Stories is going to be all the better with having you a part of it.
I'm absolutely honoured to be able to be part of this myself. Thank you for thinking of me and my first ever podcast. Yay.